What do Munsters and the Wizard of Oz have to do with each other? Stay tuned. Hello, welcome back to the Spoonie Stitcher channel. I'm Shannon, the Spoonie Stitcher. You're inside the Stitchery, and I'm so happy you're here today. Today is the Decade Divas 1960s. Want to know what the Decade Divas is? Allow me to explain. And if you don't know what the Decade Divas is, I'm going to give you a brief synopsis, but if you want to know everything and how you can participate too, I will link the video down below where I explain everything. But the Decade Divas was based off of the October Opals, which is what Teresa, Ashley, and I started last year, which is people who were born in October decided to get together and crochet stuff. We found 3 of us. There's more, but that's how many we found at the time. So we called ourselves the October Opals, and we did like a spirit week last year, and that was a bit much for us, so we decided to do it week by week, and then we decided we needed more people. So we got more people to join us this year, and they weren't all born in October, so October Opals had to go, and Decade Divas was born. So we all chose a decade to host. Okay, so now you know what it is, and you can participate too if you go to that video down below and find out how you can participate for next week. Next week is the 1980s. But this week is the 1960s, woohoo! Hosted by Teresa at Critters Crochet. Please go check out her video. 1, she's the host, and 2, I might have sent her something. Go see. So please make sure you check out all the Decade Divas down below. They all made a video today, and I'm sure they're amazing. I'm sure we all went in really different directions. So if you're new to this channel, hi, I'm Shannon, I'm the Spoonie Stitcher. I love all things creativity, whether that's crafting with yarn, crafting with other things, baking, cooking, whatever makes you feel creative. Animation, movies, television, the theater, Shakespeare, anything that makes you feel like your creative juices are flowing, I'm interested in it, and this channel's all about it. So if you're interested in that too, you might want to subscribe. If you don't want to subscribe, I understand, but watch this video anyway. You might learn something, but you'll definitely have fun, because I have some fun surprises up my sleeve. So if you can't tell, we're in the 1960s, and can you tell who I am? Maybe I can help you out. Jeepers! How was that? I'm Daphne Blake from Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? But of course, I can't do this without a co-host. So, allow me to introduce my little co-host for this evening, the Scooby-Doo Tot. Is he not precious? I love him so much. This is actually a last-minute project because I had a totally different vibe going for this video. But we're going to do this anyway because I went, I want to dress as Daphne and I want to make Scooby. So I did. This is kind of my zero tot pattern. Zero from Nightmare Before Christmas. It's kind of that pattern, and I just made the ears a teensy bit different. I added 2 more stitches at the top of his head, and I made a snout. And then the tail is different, obviously. But that's it. Then I made him a little collar. Making this little diamond-y shape was not easy. I kind of made it like a really pointy leaf. You know, when you make a leaf, you go up the chain and back the chain, and then you have to go on one side and then the other. Well, I did that, but I did a lot more slip stitches so that I could get more of a point. I don't know. Did it work? Crocheters of the world? Did it work? I don't know. But all I care about is how adorable he is. And yes, before you ask, for those of you who are not new to the channel, you know what yarn I used to make this adorable pup. Toucan! Again, not sponsored by Hobie, but wish I was. Toucan yarn, the best chenille I have found yet. This little guy is so cute, and I love him. I love him. He's so cute. There will probably be more pictures of us at the end of this video. Just warning you now. So he's my little co-host for today. But he's actually not my 60s project. Because there was a totally different vibe going for this video. But now, we're going to take a trip back in time. And we're going to go to the 1960s together. And we're going to talk about television through the 1960s. Stay tuned. In the 1960s, CBS needed a kids show. They needed a new kids show. And because of the popularity of Hanna-Barbera, that's where they went. They said, we need a show. And they had some specifics in mind of the kind of show they wanted to make. They wanted a comedy adventure starring teenagers that was silly, but maybe a little scary. Just to change things up. So Hanna-Barbera did some work and they had some ideas, and they sent one of their best this concept of musicians. It was a group of teenage musicians that went on tour with their dog, Too Much, a bongo player. And while they were on tour, they would stumble across mysteries. Well, they kind of hated that idea. However, do you know what show eventually used that idea? Here's your trivia for the day. Put your guesses down below. There is a Hanna-Barbera cartoon that was created later that did have a group of musicians who solved mysteries. Do you know who it is? See if you can get it right by the end of this video when I reveal the answer. They brought it to Fred Silverman, and Silverman said, I don't like the band idea, and I really hate the dog. You hate the dog? They started again, and they tried another idea. They called it the concept, Who's Scared? That's what they called it. And they had Shaggy, the beatnik boy, and the dog. They weren't willing to get rid of the dog. Good for them. And they had them as kind of a Bob Hope, Bing Crosby kind of team. Kind of like the Road 2 movies. But there was something missing. So they decided that they needed every team member to have kind of a shtick. So Fred was the leader. You know, he's the macho guy. He's the leader. You know, he will lead you into battle. There you go. Then you had Velma. She was the smart one. She was the one who was underestimated, but very brainy. Then you had Shaggy, who was kind of a klutz, and you had Scooby, who was a scaredy cat. So that's why Shaggy and Scooby kind of worked with each other. And then you had Daphne. Danger-prone Daphne. You can put together the pieces. She gets kidnapped a lot. So it was still called Who's Scared? And they brought the concept, I forget his name, I'm sorry, I will put it on screen. And he had this really cool idea of when he designs a character, he thinks of letters and shapes, which is so cool to me because I design crochet in shapes. The first thing that comes to me is usually the shape, especially when I'm coming up with an original character. First thing that comes to me is, what kind of shape do I want to make? And then I make the character. So I like this guy. So Fred was a V. He was the macho guy with broad shoulders, and he was the athletic type. Daphne was an S. I appreciate that. Because she was curvy and a little sexy. And then there was Velma, who was like a box, because she was the level-headed square one. Square being a good and bad term at the same time. Like, she was no nonsense, but also she was level-headed. So it balanced out. Shaggy was kind of a droopy curve. He wanted him to have bad posture, baggy clothes, you know, like I said, a beatnik. And Shaggy to look like he didn't really care how he looked. He just wanted to be comfortable and have the kind of loose shape so that they could do more fun things during chase scenes and stuff with Scooby and Shaggy. And then there was Scooby. Hey, buddy. They kept the dog. So they decided what kind of dog do they want. Do they want a big dog or do they want a little dog? Well, they went with a big dog because they thought it would be funnier. And they wanted one of the biggest dogs around. And one of the top dog breeds at the time was the Great Dane. So they brought in a breeder who told them everything that qualifies for a superb, perfect Great Dane. And our illustrator friend said, absolutely, I'm going to pick 5 traits that make the perfect Great Dane, and then didn't use any of them. What he did was he turned them around. So a Great Dane is supposed to have a perfect straight back. So he gave Scooby that little slope. A Great Dane is supposed to have strong, straight hind legs. So he made them bow-legged. A Great Dane is supposed to have a great chiseled jaw. So he gave him that little puffy jaw. And so on and so on. I love it. Because it's a comedy. So Fred Silverman brought the idea to the executives, and the executives said, whoa, way too scary. We're going to get letters. There's no way. The monsters are too creepy. It's a terrible idea. So they changed 2 things. And you're going to love this. Remember the guy who hated the dog? Yeah. Insisted the dog be the star. Same guy insisted the dog be the star. Because now the dog will show the kids that it's okay and it's a silly, fun show and they shouldn't be scared. They might be a little frightened, but at the end of the day, even the coward is going to be the hero. So it's okay. And adorable. But also, we have to make sure that the monsters take off their masks. Monsters are just people in masks. We're not going to have any Frankensteins. We're not going to have any, big characters that are from monster movies or anything like that. We're only going to have characters that they put on a mask to hide themselves, and then they're going to be unveiled. So kids should not be scared. Love that genius idea. Okay, so we have a show. We have a concept. We have an illustrator. Oh yeah, voices. We need a cast. So they got some of the best voices in the world because we all know who Shaggy was. Casey Kasem. America's Top 40, Casey Kasem. Who doesn't know that voice? So they called Don Messick. Don Messick was known as like the man of 1,000 voices. And he was the voice for our little star, Scooby-Doo. And he did a fabulous job. But as you might know, Frank Welker has been credited for doing Scooby-Doo's voice for a long time. Well, Messick was older, and he decided that he only wanted to do Scooby-Doo for so long. I do believe, though, that the entire time Scooby-Doo Where Are You ran, it was only Messick. But let's go back to Casey Kasem. Did you know Casey Kasem didn't want to be Shaggy? I know, it's really hard to believe, but he didn't want to be Shaggy. He wanted to be Fred. He auditioned for Fred, and they gave him the script for Shaggy. And he was like, that's not what I came for. Frank Welker did a stand-up act, and somebody heard him do a bunch of animal voices in his act and said, oh, you need to try out for Scooby. Isn't that interesting? But when he got there, they said, well, you could try for Shaggy if you want to. And he's like, oh, okay. But they gave him the script for Fred. Aren't we glad? Can you picture the other way around? I'm pretty sure Welker could do Shaggy, but I don't think that Casey Kasem could be the strong and bold, fun, athletic teenager Fred exactly. Nothing against the guy, I just don't think he could pull off that kind of character. And we all can't do everything. Let's talk about Velma. Nicole David. Oh, she's the cutest, isn't she? Have you ever seen her be interviewed? It's adorable. She's Velma. She said when she came in and she saw the drawing, she said, it's me. I just don't have glasses. I do, by the way, which I'm hoping I'm looking at the camera. I'm just going to tell you guys now. I don't want to wear the glasses because it kind of ruins the Daphne look. I guess I look like I'm Daphne and Velma. But yeah, this is why this video is edited, because I need my glasses to read my notes. So anyway, Nicole David was the voice for Velma, and she's so perfect. I love the original Velma voice. It's adorable. I love it. Anyway, she came in and she said, that looks like me, except I'm not wearing glasses, but even her hair was kind of the same. We gotta voice Daphne. Nicole David's roommate at the time was Heather North. You might know Heather North from The Barefoot Executive. She got to be Kurt Russell's girlfriend in that. I think you know that name, but hold on to it for 1 second. Daphne was originally voiced by, I believe her name is Stefania Christopherson. I know the Christopherson is correct. Ugh. I forgot to write that name down. I'll put it here. This was the original voice for Daphne for about, I think, the first season. And then when they got to season 2, she didn't want to do it anymore. Nicole, who's been doing Velma all this time, went to Heather and said, you got to audition. You're perfect for this. And Heather was like, I don't know about that. And Nicole said, please do it. You know, your friend's talking you in to do stuff. It's not a new concept. So she went to the audition. She tried out. Oh, she got it. They loved her. We love her. The original voice for Daphne is so great. Don't get me wrong. I love Grey Griffin, Grey DeLise, whatever you know her as. I love her voice. I love just her voice in general. But all the voices she's done, I absolutely love. But her voice for Daphne is one of my favorites. But Heather's is just, it fits the 60s. I don't know how else to put it. It fits the 60s. It works so well. I love the original Daphne voice. September 13th, 1969, Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? Was born. And boy, did it take off. I mean, look how many spin-offs we had. So let's continue talking about family entertainment. There are 4 shows that happened in the 60s that turned 60 years old this year. That still blows me away. I wanted to do something for all 4 of them. I really did. I wanted to do it so badly, but y'all, I didn't have the time or the spoons. I'm so sorry. I just don't have that, so I couldn't. But I represented 2 of them, and we will talk about 2 of them, and a third one briefly. But the 4 shows are The Munsters, The Addams Family, Bewitched, and I Dream of Jeannie. I grew up with these shows. I grew up with these shows. These shows were a huge part of my childhood. I lived overseas, so 60s television, for some reason, showed up a lot on military housing televisions around the world. I don't know why. TV Land kind of thing was huge when I was living overseas. So that's what I watched. I watched some kids stuff too. I actually watched Scooby-Doo in Hindi. So I got like Cartoon Network, TV Land, and then some really random movies. So that's just what I grew up on. So anyway, these shows mean a lot to me. They are some of like my biggest comfort shows. So, now you know more about me. But it's my birthday month. So if you want to learn about me, this is the month you should, right? One of my favorites of that list is Bewitched. I love Bewitched. But I also love the movie that inspired it, which is I Married a Witch. If you have never seen that film in your life, first of all, why? And second of all, it's so well done. Now, it was absolutely to shine a light on a beautiful actress known as Veronica Lake. The one who gave us the one-eyed beauties. Yeah, the peekaboo bang, as she called it. So, she was stunning. And this movie highlights so much about her. Her beauty, her figure, her face, her hair. But also, I think she's a pretty decent actress. I thought she was cute. Anyway, that movie was about a man. He was tricked into marrying a witch who was obsessed with him. Okay? So, it's a very interesting movie, and unfortunately, the 2 leads did not get along behind the scenes, but you can't really tell in the movie, so good for that. So that was one of the movies that inspired it. Also, it was inspired by Bell Book and Candle, with Jimmy Stewart and Kim Novak. And then there was also a play of I Married a Witch. That inspired the show as well. So lots of inspiration for this little show. But the number one thing they wanted to do was they wanted to make like a typical American family show, just happening to make the housewife a witch, with witch family and stuff like that to make it a little more chaotic. It was very interesting because at the same time, William Asher and Elizabeth Montgomery, who were married, had an idea for a show as well that involved a newlywed couple. And they went to ABC, and ABC said, well, we love this. It's very close to our idea. How about you do our idea and we'll star Elizabeth? Perfect. Perfect. William Asher can direct, his wife can star. Now, I am just going to tell you some really fun facts about this show because if you want to see an amazing documentary on this show, go to this channel right here. They did the 60th anniversary special for this show. It is incredible. It was so well done. I can't believe it's just a thing on YouTube. It wasn't done by the biography channel or something like that. No. So well done. Props to you. Great job. Go watch it. I linked it. You need to watch it. So here are some fun facts about Bewitched. Originally, Samantha was Cassandra, but Elizabeth Montgomery liked the name Samantha. Serena was created to help Elizabeth Montgomery not feel so stale in her role. She was getting bored and she wanted to do something where she could be a little more chaotic and fun. So she created Serena, her twin cousin, which that continued. The evil twin is something that has continued through a lot of television. But she didn't want her audience to know if she was Serena or not, even though they were twins. So in the credits, her name is Pandora Spox. We all know that Darren was replaced because Dick York was very ill and he just physically could not keep up with the role anymore. And a lot of people know that Agnes Moorehead was very upset with this decision to replace him, but what else are you going to do? I guess she liked the idea of them being divorced or something like that, but it kind of defeats the purpose of the show, which is that she loves a mortal and the mortal loves her. So, yeah. So they decided to replace Darren without explaining anything. But they actually replaced him with one of the three men that they were going to cast as Darren originally. Isn't that interesting? However, I think I've solved it. I sent this video to a friend of mine the other day and I decided to screen record it because I think I did a really good job. I think I fixed the Darren problem. Tell me what you think. Okay, so I think I know how to fix the two Darren issue on Bewitched. You know how they just didn't explain it? They just were like, Dick Sargent, Dick York, it's fine. Here's what you do. You shoot it with Elizabeth Montgomery sleeping in her bed, and it opens, and she turns to kiss Darren, and all of a sudden you see her face. She's not a screamer, but you see her face like something is very wrong. And then the camera pans to Dick Sargent's face. Now the audience knows something's wrong. Okay, you don't need Dick York for that. And then what you do is you have some kind of curse on Darren that can't be undone because the person who put it on him, they cannot find. So if they can't fix it, then what they do is they just cast a huge curse on the world that he looks like regular Darren to everybody else. And only, Samantha and Endora and maybe witches and stuff can tell that Darren has a glamour spell on him so that everybody thinks that he looks like Darren, regular Darren, so that his kids know who he is, his parents will know who he is, because if he was just a completely different person, yeah, his parents are going to notice, and so is his boss, and all this kind of stuff. But you don't need Dick York for any of that. You don't really even need a special effect. You just need a twinkly little effect and stuff like that. I think I solved it. I think I solved it. What do you think? Did I fix it? Let me know in the comments. So Darren Dick York was replaced by Darren Dick Sargent. One of my favorite movies that Dick Sargent has ever made is Operation Petticoat. If you have not checked it out, please do. Anyway, Endora, Agnes Moorehead, and Darren Dick Sargent did not get along because Agnes Moorehead was very close to Dick York. and Dick Sargent just wasn't cutting it. However, Dick York and Elizabeth Montgomery had a small tension between them because Dick York was in love with her. It's a whole thing. If you go to the Faxverse channel, they can tell you all about that mess. But Dick Sargent and Elizabeth Montgomery got along famously. You can actually tell in some scenes that her chemistry is better with Dick Sargent, and that's probably because it was like they were two friends working together, and it just worked. So a lot of people on that show got replaced. Louise got replaced, which I'm kind of glad about because poor David White and whoever the first Louise was did not get along. But his second one, they did. And she loved working with David White. So, yay! Plus, I think she makes a better Louise anyway. They're cuter together. I like them better. So, sorry to the first Louise, but the second Louise is better. Gladys Kravitz was played by Alice Pierce, who was fighting ovarian cancer, so she had to be replaced once she died, because the funny, nosy neighbor was a funny little trope, and they liked using it. Darren's father was played by two actors, Robert F. Simon and Roy Roberts. They alternated roles throughout the entire series. Tabitha was played by twins Aaron and Diane Murphy, until Aaron got old enough and she took the role on entirely by herself. Elizabeth Montgomery was actually pregnant during the first season of Bewitched. I bet you didn't even know that because they hid it really well. And they didn't just put props in front of her or give her baggy clothing, although they did, but it was the 60s, so boxy dresses were kind of the fashion. So she kind of got away with it. Plus, they were newlyweds, so they made a lot of scenes where she's in a nightgown or her witch dress, which is very flowy and can hide a lot of stuff. Just ask Jeannie with all the veils. If you know, you know. Speaking of Jeannie, Samantha and Jeannie are actually neighbors. If you look at this Google Earth shot, yeah, that's Jeannie's house and that's the Stevens house because they both shot on Columbia Pictures lot. Things you didn't know. By the way, there is no animosity between Barbara Eden and Elizabeth Montgomery. That is a huge rumor that went around and around, and both women have claimed that if anything was said about them, it was publicity, and it wasn't true. They did not dislike each other at all, and they didn't think their shows were stepping on each other's toes at all, even though they both had an evil twin, they both had covered up pregnancies, they both had, they were in love with the main guy. Some of the magic that took place was similar. They didn't care. They were on rival networks, and they didn't care. Classy, ladies. We love you. So Elizabeth was pregnant during the season 1, and they decided, okay, it's too soon for her and Darren to have a baby, so no. Season 2, she was pregnant again. This time they decided, well, wouldn't it be cute if they had a little witch baby? So they didn't know if they were going to give her a boy or a girl for the longest time. It was, basically decided mere moments before the reveal. But Elizabeth Montgomery had a little boy, but Samantha had a little girl and she needed a name. And Samantha just liked the name Tabitha. It just kind of came to her and she loved it and it stuck. Then in season 5 or 6, I can't remember, she was pregnant again and they went, well, here comes Adam. So they gave her another kid. She was pregnant a lot during this show. The heart necklace that Samantha always wears, that was actually a gift from William Asher. And they started to feel like they were going to get divorced towards the second to last season and the last season that they ever had. If you notice, she starts wearing the necklace a lot less. Bernard Fox, Alice Ghostley, and Paul Lynde all played characters in the early seasons, just one episode. Bernard Fox played a character that didn't believe in witches. Alice Ghostley played Naomi, a terrible maid, and Paul Lynde played the driving instructor, one of my favorite episodes ever. It's just so good. But they were all really big hits with the audience, and so in the back of William's mind, he was like, we should bring these people back again, but we don't know why. But the Paul Lynde episode was so big, like it made such an impression on audiences, they designed a character just for Paul Lynde to keep coming back. So they gave him Uncle Arthur. Who doesn't love Uncle Arthur? He was so great, and nobody could play him but Paul Lynde. But side note, I do think Steve Carell did a fairly decent job in the Bewitched movie. But nobody is Paul Lynde. They needed a medical doctor. They wanted a character who was going to be a witch doctor. Play on words. Bernard Fox was in everything at the time. He was guest starring on everything. And they remembered that he did such a fun job. They asked him to come back and said, hey, do you want to play a recurring character, Dr. Bombay? And he said yes. Alice Ghostley came back later on in seasons for the character of Esmeralda. And we'll get to her in 1 second on why they needed her. Marion Lorne. Marion Lorne. I love her so much. They said that she was basically exactly like Aunt Clara, except she wasn't ditzy. She was very smart. However, there was one quirk about Marion that they were like, we'll put that in the show. That's hilarious. Marion Lorne really did have a doorknob collection. She collected doorknobs. That is not an Aunt Clara thing. That is a Marion Lorne thing. But it's endearing and it's precious, and I'm so glad they kept it. But, of course, Marion Lorne passed away, and Elizabeth refused to recast her. Said, we're not replacing Aunt Clara. Ever. Marion Lorne is Aunt Clara. That's it. But later on in the seasons, as their numbers were kind of dwindling, they wanted to add a new fun character that would get them the kind of love like they got from Aunt Clara. And that's where we got Esmeralda, a witch nanny who wasn't very good at magic, so comedy ensues. Unless you were Samantha, Endora, Darren, or a guest star, you had to come up with your own wardrobe. I did not know that until I was watching something about David White. And David White, his biography is so tragic. And so much happened to him that he did not deserve. His son was killed. A lot of other stuff happened, but because of that, when Larry's character has a child in the show, they named him after his actual son. Yeah, do you need a tissue? Because I might. The finale was an issue. It was a whole thing. So unfortunately, they remade an episode from like the first or second season about the one where Darren gets a little truth god, except this time it's a pin, and this time it's to prove that he's faithful to Samantha, which of course he is. And the last one was about him just being truthful in general, and that guys hide things, and very weak finale. Very weak. And, well, Elizabeth was done. She was like, I'm done with this show. I want to be a mom. She's got 3 kids, as we have heard. So she wanted to be a mom, and for the rest of her life, Elizabeth basically just did TV movies. And that was pretty much it. TV movies and a mom. She wanted to be a mom. I love that. So for Bewitched, a witch hat. I had to. So unfortunately, couldn't make a genie bottle or anything that had to do with genie this time, but there's always next year. 1313 Mockingbird Lane. Who lives at that address? Did you say the Munsters? Yes, the Munsters. Don't get me wrong, I love the Addams Family. Morticia is me. But when it comes to entertainment, I love the Munsters. The Munsters are one of my favorite television shows of all time. There you go, another fun fact about me. I love it so much. Part of it is the fact that I grew up with the actors. So Fred Gwynn, who played Herman, he was in like My Cousin Vinny and Car 54, Where Are You? With Al Lewis, who played Grandpa in the Munsters, and then Yvonne DiCarlo was in The Ten Commandments and McClintock, and I'm talking about these movies you've never seen. Film Fridays, we will fix that next year. Anyway, I love this. And then Butch Patrick was in the Phantom Toll booth. And to be fair, I've actually never seen Pat Priest or Beverly Owen in anything except maybe like a guest starring role. They played Marilyn. But I mean, part of the fact that I love the show, I think, is because I love the actors to begin with. Did you know they actually were going to have a different actress play Lily Munster? Can you imagine? If you want to do more than imagine, you can find the colorized 16-minute unofficial pilot, which was like a test to see how the show would do. And, that is not a loving couple. And the child who played Eddie, yikes. Apparently he was that way offset too. Just a scary, mean little tyrant. Yeah, we don't want to watch a husband and wife fight and their kid be awful to everyone. I wanted to honor my favorite Munster couple, and I started designing this a couple years ago, and then I lost my pattern. It was a whole thing. If you are a close friend of mine, you know the saga, and you know how much pain I was in emotionally because I couldn't find my pattern. And I didn't remember what I did at all. So I couldn't finish it. I had Herman. I did not have Lily. She was halfway done and I lost her body. Anyway, I found it. And I actually found it on this channel. If you see, I think it's my whip video last Christmas. I was going through my whip bags and there they were in one of my random whip bags. And I was so excited. And if you watched that video, you saw my excitement and everything. Because I didn't know that was going to happen. It was great that I caught it on tape. Yay. Anyway, Herman. And of course, Lily. Okay, let's talk about her hair. I spent forever on her hair. So I studied so many pictures of Yvonne DiCarlo's wig. I wanted to get these streaks in the exact right spot. I finished her early this year and I wanted to show you guys so badly. I wanted to show everybody. I showed a couple of my friends who are not crocheters, but I couldn't show any of my crochet friends because I knew I was doing this and I already decided, oh, I'm doing the Munsters and the Addams Family, which as you can see, the Addams Family didn't happen because this took so long. So yeah, her hair was really, really hard to do. I had to pay a lot of attention and make sure the white didn't go with the black and the black wasn't in the wrong spot and make sure all the little hairs didn't fall out, and then I had to brush and brush and brush and brush. It was a whole thing. But I think she turned out really cute. I looked everywhere for a tiny little bat pendant to be her necklace. I looked everywhere. I couldn't find one small enough. Everything looked way too big, so I thought about drawing it on with a Sharpie, and then I was like, it'll look like a tattoo, so nah. But she does have eyelashes. So that's Lily. And then Herman, he has his little bolts. And yes, his head is a rectangle. How did I do that? Magic. No, lots of math. To make his body and his head square like that, and well, squared off and rectangular, lots of math. But I did it. So that was my 60s project. He was a bonus. And the hat, well, I'll be honest. Did you see Elfie Corgi on my shorts? It's her hat. But it works for both. It's a witch's hat. It works for all witches. Anyway, this was my project for the 60s. Please don't ask for a pattern. There is no pattern yet. I really want to do the whole family. Once I do the whole family, maybe I will release a written pattern. We shall see. But that could take a couple years, you guys. I'm slow. I'm working on it. And I really want them to be exactly how I see them. So lots of frogging is involved. And if you're a designer, you understand. But would you like to learn about the Munsters? In 1964, Universal had this boom of the monster craze. They had made monster pictures and there was just this craze for monster mania. So of course, networks want to capitalize on this. So we got the Addams Family, which was created because of the comic strip of Charles Addams, which was about a family who were just unusual. They were a perfectly ordinary family. They just loved the macabre. But then they were like, but they're not monsters. And so CBS wanted to go in a completely different way, and they wanted to do monsters. But they wanted them to be like, Leave It to Beaver, Father Knows Best feel. They just happen to be monsters. That is a great concept. I love it. So they wanted the dad to be Frankenstein's monster, and they wanted his wife to be a vampire. Her father lives with them, and then their son, Eddie, is a werewolf. And then, of course, their niece, Marilyn. Marilyn is a perfectly normal human who, she's the one who feels like the odd one out. And every time her dates run away and everything, she thinks it's her fault. And the Munsters feel bad for her because, you know, their idea of beauty and the world's idea of beauty are completely different. And so Marilyn feels a little, I'm not pretty. But of course, Lily is so cute. She's like, well, you know what? If a guy just loves you for your beauty, then, you know, that's not good. And so it's really cute how they take care of her. I love Lily and Marilyn's relationship. I love the relationship between Eddie and Herman. There's so much to love. Al Lewis and Fred Gwynn, Herman and Grandpa, just so you know, they were already buddies. They already had this like Abbott and Costello kind of feel, and it worked so well. They are one of like the top dynamic duos for comedy duos that's out there. They actually rejected Yvonne DiCarlo at first because they thought, she's some big Hollywood star. She's not going to be able to do funny. She can do funny, and she can hold her own with those boys as well. I love how Lily was stern, but she was incredibly warm, which is funny because, you know, she probably has no blood. Well, the concept hit one of the top 10 most watched shows in their first season. Number one audience, children. Children loved how silly this was, how fun it was. They actually learned some lessons. There's actually currently a clip going around that's going viral of Herman Munster giving Eddie advice, which is beautiful. And why don't they write scripts like this anymore? Just putting that out there. Unfortunately, it took a toll on the actors because the actors had to wear all of this makeup. Lily's wig was 20 pounds, and she had a small team to help her move it around when she was not acting on the set and she was just walking around. They had a small team to help her with her hair. But the worst of it was Fred. Fred had the suit. He had to put an air hose down his suit to cool off. He had like a bodysuit. He had the stilts in his feet. He had the makeup. He had the plaster. It was miserable. Thank goodness he loved this character because, oh my goodness, can you imagine? I feel so bad for him, but I'm so glad he hung on because nobody else can play Herman like that. Well, almost nobody. One of my favorite stories is Beverly Owens. Beverly Owens was the original Marilyn, and she wanted to get out of her contract because she was homesick and she wanted to marry her sweetheart. She was stuck in a 7-year contract with no lawyer. She didn't know. She was young, all that jazz. She was miserable. She was crying on set. So Al and Fred went to the executives and said, let her out of her contract or we'll walk. She's miserable. Let her get married. We'll find another Marilyn. It'll be fine. Give these men a medal. I love that. They said, we'll walk. We'll leave. They're the stars. They're the comedy glue. They let her out of her contract. And so we got Pat Priest, who, side note, my favorite Marilyn. But she was nearly 30. And she looks so great. I don't know that she's 30. I didn't know she was 30. I thought she was a teenager. I mean, nowadays, I kind of thought, okay, maybe she's 20. But, because, you know, you use older people to play teenagers. But when I was young, I thought she was a teenager. I fell for it. And since their biggest audience is kids, kids fell for it too. In fact, she looked so much like Beverly. They just changed her hair. She already fit her clothes. They needed no alterations. Okay, hello. She was gorgeous. Her voice was similar. And everything worked. So many people didn't even have an idea that the actress changed. It was like, oh, it says Pat instead of Beverly now. Okay. They didn't care. They loved her. We all love her. We got to talk about George Barris real quick because he is the car designer. He designed the Munster coach. Oh yeah, that car. Oh my gosh. Did you know they had an aggressive marketing campaign and the number one thing that everybody wanted was that little replica of the car. That thing is amazing to look at. That is such a clever concept. I mean, it's part coffin, part chem lab, part luxury car. It was amazing. And how did this guy think of like, oh, we'll use chains here, and oh, this will be a cobweb design, and again with the amazing. This show was so clever. For season 2, they went towards a broader comedy kind of thing, and Fred and Al were not happy. They said, our audience is more intelligent than this, and these silly jokes they don't work for us. However, there is one episode that is one of Fred Gwynne's favorites. I bet you know which one it is. I just told you how much trouble he had with the makeup and the suit and everything. Well, there's an episode called Just Another Pretty Face, and Fred Gwynne gets to be Fred Gwynne. Somehow Herman gets turned into a normal man, and it's just Fred Gwynne in a suit. And it's such a funny episode, but you know he had a great time because he didn't have to wear the Herman makeup or the suit or the stilts or anything for a long time. Yay! But Al Lewis said that our audience is more intelligent than this. We need to do more satirical stuff. And they listened and they didn't. It's kind of a mixture. So season 2 is a little all over the place, but still really fun. January 1965, another show came in and took kids' attention away from Munsters or Addams Family or anything because of the bright colors, the amazing costumes, the lots of sound and light and animated effects. Batman. Batman was crushing these shows. Addams Family, Munsters, all of that. They were absolutely getting crushed by Batman. Now, Batman was on the same network as Addams Family, so that was really rude. They did personal appearances. They tried to get their audience engaged. The merchandise was still flying off the shelves. They just couldn't compete with the spectacle of Batman. And, you know, I love Batman too, so I kind of get it. But I would be happy watching both. I was happy watching both, so, you know. But spring 1966, Munsters canceled. But it's not the end of them. They made a movie in color in the 70s, Munsters Go Home. Watch it. If you've never seen it, I think it's super fun. And it was a great way for them to kind of like end the Munsters. I consider that movie more of the finale than the actual finale of the show. I think that works better. And they got to shoot it in color. When the show went into syndication, they got a much bigger audience and the reruns were going like crazy. They got like a cult classic now. Remember my question at the beginning of this video? What do Monsters and the Wizard of Oz have in common? Yeah. The Munsters' Revenge, 1981 TV movie. They got back almost everybody. They got back Yvonne, Fred, and Al to be their parts, and then they replaced the kids. But it was meant to be kind of a test to see if the Munsters could come back. Unfortunately, it was aired on the same night at the same time The Wizard of Oz premiered on television, which we all know did exceptionally well. So, yeah, that crushed them. In 1988, they tried to make another sitcom of the Munsters where they replaced the entire cast. You've never heard of it? Yeah, there's a reason for that. It did so poorly. We all know that Fred Gwynne passed away, and so they wanted to do another project, but Fred Gwynne was gone. So now we have to replace Fred Gwynne. 1995, another TV movie, Here Come the Munsters. Edward Herrmann, yes, the guy from Gilmore Girls, or Big Business, or any number of things. The guy was super famous. Those are two of my favorite roles that he plays. He played Herman Munster in this, and there is a fantastic cameo with Yvonne DiCarlo, Pat Priest, Butch Patrick, and Al Lewis in a restaurant with him. I think I have a picture of it. Playing themselves without actually saying their names, except Lily does call Al Grandpa. Edward Herrmann was actually a pretty decent Herman Munster. Herman. He did a really good job, and you could tell that he kind of studied Gwyn when he was trying to do this. And he tried really hard to do the laugh, but I think only Fred Gwynne can do that laugh. But it was really, he tried really hard. So, the Munsters have never gone away, though. We love them now, we love them still. Don't get me started on the movie they made of how Lily and Herman met. Oh, you've never heard of that one either? Yeah, Trainwreck, because it's terrible. Anyway. So, do you know the answer? What was the show that used the original concept with musicians solving mysteries? Josie and the Pussycats. Excellent show, by the way. Does anybody else think that these characters inspired Barbie Life in the Dream House? Watch this show, watch that show, try to unsee it. I'm just saying. Whew, this was a long video, but I hope you guys were thoroughly entertained. I don't know. I tried. I really wanted to cram all this information in there. I even had more in my notes, but I decided to cut some out so you guys wouldn't be sitting here forever. But I hope this was a great video for you to like crochet to, have a cup of coffee, all that kind of stuff. Maybe wrap some Christmas gifts. I don't know. So thank you so much for joining me today. Please remember to check out Teresa at Critters Crochet. She is the host for the 1960s, so you definitely want to check her out. And of course, all the other divas. We've got KK and Kristen at K&K Crochet. We've got Sonnet at The Sonnet Silence, Ashley at Gwinspired, Teresa at Critters Crochet, and myself. We are the Decade Divas. And come back next week for the 1980s, hosted by Ashley, Gwinspired Crochet. Thank you so much for being here today. Remember, life happens, yarn helps, and spoonies can stitch it up too.